Pacific yew. Yews. Red berry-like fruits distinguish the yews from other conifers. Tolerant of shade, yews are often the only shrubs of low trees growing beneath a dense forest canopy. Canada yew, a slow shrub, is heavily browsed by winter-feeding moose and deer. The succulent fruits of various species are favored by grouse. Once prized for archery and hunting bows, yews are valid today as ornamental plants, especially on the north sides of buildings. Eastern white pine, sugar pine, lumber pine, pines. Although pines tend to have a more southerly distribution than spruces and firs, their natural range includes all of North America except the extreme north and some parts of the Midwest. 36 species are native to this continent. Certain ones, such as the eastern white pine and the shorter needled western white pine, grow almost everywhere from wet bogs to dry ridges. Even such species as the Monterey pine, naturally restricted to a small area, flourish in other areas when cultivated in tree plantations. Foresters classify the pines into two groups, the white or soft pines and the yellow or hard pines, according to the characteristics of the heartwood, the central portion of the trunk. Although the heartwood is not visible on a living tree, other differences between the two groups can be more rarely observed. Needles on white pines usually grow in clusters of 5, on yellow species in clusters of 2 or 3. Cones on most yellow pines have prickles. Those on a white pine are prickless, with the notable exception of the bristlecone pine, a tree famed for its longevity. Some specimens are the oldest trees in North America. Except for the jack pine, the trees shown on these 2 pages are white pines. The jack pine and the species on the next 2 pages are yellow pines. Pinyon, jack pine, bristlecone pine. We have red pine, ponderosa pine, lolly pine, short leaf pine, lodgepole pine, slash pine, longleaf pine, pitch pine, Scotch pine. How pines reproduce. Pines, like other conifers, usually have 2 kinds of cones. In spring, the wind carries pollen from the short-lived male structures, often on the lower branches, to the female cones. The female cones become brown and woody as seeds ripen on the scales. The cones open and release their seeds at maturity, usually in autumn of the 2nd year. Cones of some pines persist for several years and open as a result of fire. Spruces! Most of the world's 30 species of spruce share certain characteristics. Generally, the needles are sharp and 4-sided, and when crushed, release a pungent odor. The woody base of the needle remains on the twig when the needle falls, making the twig feel rough to the touch. The mature cones hang down from the branch in contrast with the erect cones of a fir. And each of the thin, papery scales making up the cone has 2 seeds, readily eaten by squirrels, crossbills, and other small mammals and birds. Spruces are typically tall and conical, but soil and climate may alter their pattern of growth. In Alaska and northern Canada, frost, wind, and a short growing season stunt the development of black spruce. Trees more than 100 years old may measure only 10 feet tall. In the southern Rockies, an Engelmann spruce may hug the ground, its buds abraded by wind-borne particles. Often associated in people's minds with northern forests, spruces penetrate south along Mountain America. The Engelmann spruce and the blue spruce almost reach the Mexican border. The blue spruce is also widely planted as an ornamental. On eastern mountains, the red spruce extends south to the Carolinas. There's black spruce, Norway spruce, Sitka spruce, white spruce, Engelmann spruce. Larches. Unlike most conifers, larches turn yellow and shed their needles, but not their cones, in autumn. Of the 3 species native to cooler parts of North America, only the western larch is commercially important. The subalpine larch is a timberline species. We have the tamarack, eastern larch, and the western larch. Hemlocks. The long-lived hemlocks develop slowly in the shade of their forest companions, but in maturity produce such dense shade that few other species can grow beneath the graceful boughs. In the 19th century, the great forests of eastern hemlock were destroyed for the tannin in their bark, but now some of the forests are developing anew. Western hemlock has longer cones and thrives on cool, moist slopes. The Carolinas and mountain hemlocks, species of eastern and western mountains, respectively, have still longer cones. Eastern hemlock. True firs. These graceful evergreens, worshipped by ancient Germanic tribes, were the inspiration for the Yuletide song, O Tannenbaum. Indeed, lights on a Christmas tree are thought to be imitations of the snow-covered cone stalks on a fir, the pencil-like structures that remain near the tips of branches after the scales have fallen away from the cones. All 40 species of true firs, 9 are native to North America, bear upright cones, in contrast with the hanging ones characteristic of most other conifers. True firs grow in cool, moist soils in northern lowland forests, reaching higher elevations farther to the south. The Fraser fir replaces the balsam fir in the southern Appalachians. In the west, the purple-coned subalpine fir grows south to New Mexico and Arizona. Twigs can help to identify conifers. A spruce needle grows from a woody base, which makes the bared twig feel rough. Needles on a Douglas fir narrow at the base, leaving a small, slightly raised scar. The stemless needle of a true fir makes a slight depression in the twig, but the twig feels smooth. We have balsam fir, grand fir, white fir, California red fir. Giant sequoias. Although some sequoias are more than 3,000 years old, some bristlecone pines are still older. Redwoods are taller, but no trees grow more massive than the giant sequoias or big trees, which can measure more than 100 feet around at the base. Giant sequoias. Redwoods. Both redwoods and giant sequoias are relics of the ancient past, frequently confused in people's minds because of their impressive size. The two kinds of conifers are quite different in both appearance and habitat. Redwoods thrive in moist coastal areas, while the giant sequoias are associated with drier mountain areas. Bald cypresses. Typically festooned with Spanish moss, the bald cypress has knees arising from the root system. Their function remains a matter of speculation. The tree is unusual in habit as well as appearance. Though a conifer, it sheds its leaves in autumn. Its close relative, the Montezuma bald cypress, is evergreen. Bald cypress. Douglas firs. Rivaling the redwood in height, the Douglas fir grows tall and straight in moist coastal areas, but occurs elsewhere in a very different form. Trees in the Rockies grow only about a third as tall, and their needles usually have a blue rather than a yellow cast. The Douglas in the name refers to David Douglas, a 19th century botanical explorer. Douglas fir.